Picture this, you're out on the ice, you've drilled 10, maybe 20 holes. You're running and gunning, checking your sonar, moving constantly. You're doing everything you're supposed to do, but your bucket is empty. Then you look over and there's an old timer. He's been sitting on the same bucket over the same single hole for 3 hours, and he's pulling fish out one after another. What does he know that you don't? Today we're going to tear apart a sacred cow of modern ice fishing, the idea that you must constantly be moving and drilling to find fish. I'm going to show you why your auger, the tool you think is essential for finding fish, might actually be the very thing scaring them all away. And I promise by the end of this video, you will look at a dead hole in a completely different way. So let me ask you, how many holes is too many? Let's get into it.
For years, the evolution of ice fishing has been all about mobility and technology. We went from hand augers to gas and now to incredibly powerful and fast electric augers. We have sensitive sonar units that can show us a fish blinking 100 feet away. All this gear has pushed a single strategy to the forefront: run and gun. The idea is simple. Drill a hole, check for fish. If they're not there, move on. Keep moving until you land directly on top of an active school. It makes sense on the surface. Why waste time on an empty spot? This method has become so ingrained that many fishermen feel unproductive if they're not constantly drilling. But this approach ignores a fundamental truth about the underwater world. It ignores how our actions up here on the ice create an earthquake down below. We've been so focused on finding the fish, we've forgotten about the importance of not scaring them. Let's start with the initial shockwave. When you fire up that auger, you're not just cutting ice. You're sending a massive blast of noise and vibration directly into the water column. Sound travels nearly 5 times faster in water than in air. To a fish, that auger isn't a distant hum. It's like a jackhammer going off in their living room. Think about how a deer reacts to a snapping twig in the woods. Now imagine that sound is 1,000 times louder and coming from directly above. The immediate, instinctual reaction for any creature is to either flee or freeze. This initial disturbance is the first and most violent part of your arrival at a new spot. You are announcing your presence in the most disruptive way possible, and we often underestimate just how long the effects of that shockwave last. It's not a momentary event. It's a lingering trauma for the fish in the area. So what happens to the fish after that initial blast? This brings us to how fish behave under pressure. Their world is all about vibrations. Their lateral line is an incredibly sensitive organ designed to detect the faintest movements. When your auger rips through the ice, it overloads that system. The common belief is that the fish just swim away, but that's only half the story. Many fish, especially larger, more cautious predators like walleye or big perch, will do the opposite. They'll hunker down, they'll press their bellies to the bottom, tuck into the nearest weed bed or piece of structure, and simply wait for the threat to pass. They go into a negative feeding mood. They see your lure, but their brain is screaming danger, not food. So when you drop your sonar in and see a blank screen, it doesn't always mean there are no fish there. It can often mean the fish are there, but they're hiding from you. This leads us to a critically important but often ignored concept, the settling in period. After the chaos of drilling, the environment needs time to return to normal. Think of it like dropping a big rock into a calm pond. The ripples don't stop immediately. They spread out, bounce back, and slowly fade away. It's the same thing under the ice. The vibrations need to dissipate. The spooked fish need time to feel safe again. How long does this take? It could be 5 minutes, it could be 20, or even longer, depending on the species and the conditions. The run and gun angler who drills a hole and fishes it for only 3 to 5 minutes is leaving during the absolute worst time. They are fishing in the heart of the chaos they created and then leaving right before things might have started to calm down and the fish might have resumed normal activity. They're judging the spot based on its reaction to a traumatic event, not on its actual potential. Now let's flip the script. Instead of constantly searching for active fish, what if you could make them come to you? This is the core idea of activating a spot. When you stay in one place and work a lure, you're doing more than just trying to trigger a bite from a fish directly below you. Your jigging action creates its own subtle, more natural vibrations. It kicks up a little puff of silt from the bottom. If you're using bait, you're creating a scent trail that the current can carry. These signals are the opposite of an auger. They signal food, not danger. A cruising perch or a wandering walleye might be 30 feet away, but they can sense these subtle cues. Over time, you can draw fish in from the surrounding area. It's like ringing a dinner bell instead of setting off a fire alarm. This process takes time. You can't build a scent trail or attract a curious fish in just 2 minutes. By staying put, you are investing in the potential of your location. Let's talk about the sonar fallacy. Modern electronics are amazing tools, but they can also be a crutch that leads to bad decisions. The fallacy is believing that if you don't mark a fish, there are no fish. As we discussed, fish can hunker down on the bottom, becoming almost invisible, especially on soft bottoms or in weeds. They might be just outside the cone of your transducer, holding tight to a rock. A blank screen can create a false sense of urgency. It whispers in your ear, "There's nothing here, you need to move." This prompts you to pick up, drill another hole 10 yards away, and repeat the whole disruptive process. You might be leaving a spot that has dozens of fish holding tight, just waiting for things to quiet down. You're essentially chasing your own tail, spooking fish with the auger, then using your sonar to confirm they're not active, and then spooking them again somewhere else. It's a vicious cycle. Let's use a real-world example, fishing for perch. Perch are a classic schooling fish, which makes them seem like a perfect target for the run and gun approach. Find the school, catch a bunch, and move when they do. This can work, but think about it differently. You drill your holes, maybe 2 or 3 in a promising area, and then you settle in. You start jigging a small spoon tipped with a minnow head. For the first 15 minutes, nothing. But what you're doing is building a scent cloud and creating the sound of a feeding opportunity. A scout from a nearby perch school, maybe 50 feet away, might wander in to investigate. Once it finds your bait and you catch it, its activity can trigger the rest of the school. Suddenly they move in to see what their buddy found. By staying put, you didn't find the school, you convinced the school to find you. And once they're there, you can hold them for a long time with a steady presentation. Now consider a different target, the elusive walleye. Walleyes are notorious for being most active during low-light periods like sunrise and sunset. They are often less aggressive and more cautious than perch. A run-and-gun strategy during prime time can be a complete disaster for walleye. You drill a hole right at sunset, making a huge racket, and you've just put every walleye within 100 yards on high alert. Instead, the patient approach shines here. Get to your spot well before the magic hour. Drill your 1 or 2 holes and get quiet. Let the area completely settle down. Be ready and waiting when that feeding window opens. The walleyes will start their natural patrol, cruising along a drop-off or weed line. Your lure, sitting there quietly, becomes an easy meal, not a suspicious object in a noisy danger zone. For walleye, patience isn't just a virtue, it's often the only strategy that works. This all ties into a bigger idea, understanding structure versus searching for fish. A good piece of structure, a sunken point, an inside turn on a weed line, a rock pile, is a fish magnet for a reason. It provides food, cover, and ambush points. Fish will relate to this structure all day long. They might not be actively feeding every minute, but they are in the neighborhood. Drilling 50 random holes on a barren flat hoping to run into a fish is a low percentage game. It's far better to identify one high percentage spot using a map, drill a minimal number of holes, and fish it thoroughly. You have to trust that the fish will use that spot eventually. Your job is to be there, presenting your bait effectively when they decide to turn on. You're fishing the spot, not just the fish you see on the flasher. This is a fundamental shift in mindset from chasing to ambushing. Let's consider the noise echo effect. We've established that the sound of your auger is loud and travels far. Now imagine what happens when you drill your 10th hole. The vibrations from that hole don't just affect the water directly beneath it. They travel across the entire area where you've been fishing. The fish that were finally starting to calm down near your first hole are now hit with another shockwave. You are essentially keeping the entire zone in a constant state of high alert. It's like trying to get someone to eat a meal while you keep setting off a car alarm every 5 minutes. They're never going to relax and settle down. This is why the Swiss cheese method of punching dozens of holes in a tight grid can be so counterproductive. You're contaminating your own fishing area with a continuous barrage of noise, ensuring that no fish in the vicinity ever feels safe enough to bite. Beyond just noise, let's talk about light and shadow. Fish, especially in clear water, are highly sensitive to changes in light. Your dark ice house, or even just your body, creates a large, ominous shadow on the bottom. Now when you drill a new hole, you're punching a brilliant shaft of light into their dark world. For a predator like a lake trout or a wary walleye, this sudden change is another major red flag. It's an unnatural event that signals danger from above. When you drill a multitude of holes, you create a confusing and threatening patchwork of light and shadow. The fish don't know what to make of it. By choosing one spot and sticking to it, you allow the underwater environment to remain stable. The fish can get accustomed to that single shadow or single column of light. It becomes part of the scenery rather than a constantly changing threat. There's also a simple human factor at play. The energy equation. Running a heavy auger, drilling hole after hole, packing up your gear, moving, and setting up again is exhausting. It takes a physical and mental toll. By the time you finally decide to fish a spot for more than 5 minutes, you might be tired. Your movements become less precise. You're not jigging as effectively. You're not paying as close attention to your line or your rod tip for those incredibly subtle bites. You're burning all your energy on the finding part of the equation and have little left for the catching part. A patient angler, on the other hand, is relaxed and focused. All their energy and concentration are dedicated to that one line in the water. They are far more likely to detect a light bite and execute a perfect hook set. So if you're not supposed to be drilling, what are you supposed to be doing? You need to learn to read the subtle signs. Patience doesn't mean just sitting there like a lawn ornament. It means active, engaged waiting. Pay attention to how your lure feels. Did it just get a tiny bit heavier? That could be a fish inhaling it. Did it feel like it ticked off something on the way up? That could be a fish swiping at it. Watch your sonar not just for big red arches, but for tiny flickers near the bottom. These are the clues that tell you there's life down there, even if they're not biting aggressively yet. A run-and-gun angler misses all of this. They're in such a hurry to see a giant mark on the screen that they ignore the whispers that could lead to a fantastic catch. True watercraft is about interpreting these subtleties. Now, this doesn't mean you should never move, of course not. But we need to redefine the criteria for what makes a hole dead. It's not a lack of fish on the flasher for 5 minutes. A better rule of thumb is to give a high percentage spot at least 30 to 45 minutes. During that time, you should try different lures, different colors, and different jigging cadences. Work the entire water column. If, after all that, you have not seen a single sign of life, no sonar flickers, no tentative bites, nothing, then you can consider a move. But the move shouldn't be a frantic 50-yard dash. It should be a calculated small adjustment, perhaps to the other side of the same piece of structure. The key is to give the spot a genuine chance to prove itself before you write it off and create more chaos. If you do decide a move is necessary, there's a right way to do it. Let's call it the cluster strategy instead of run and gun. When you first get to your spot in the morning, drill 3 or 4 holes at once, spaced about 20 feet apart around the key structure. Then get the auger out of the way and settle in on the first hole. You can fish that hole for an hour, letting the whole area calm down. If it doesn't produce, your next move isn't a loud, disruptive event. It's a quiet, stealthy slide over to one of your pre-drilled holes, and this allows you to test slightly different depths or angles on the structure without sending fresh shockwaves through the water each time you move. You're hole hopping, but in a much more strategic and less disruptive way. This is the thinking angler's approach to mobility. We also have to talk about the power of bait and scent trails, and this is something our grandfathers understood perfectly. When you're using a minnow, a waxworm, or any scented plastic, every second it's in the water, it's releasing a trail of scent. The subtle currents under the ice, which are always present, carry that scent and create a smell highway that leads directly to your hook. This process is not instant. It takes time to establish a meaningful scent presence in the water. An angler who stays put for an hour is creating a powerful beacon for any fish in the area. The angler who pulls up and moves every 10 minutes is leaving behind a series of weak, confusing scent puffs that never have time to concentrate and attract fish from a distance. By being patient, you are letting your bait do its most important work. A big part of this comes down to the psychology of patience. In our fast-paced world, we feel like we need to be constantly doing something to be productive. Sitting still feels like wasting time. This anxiety is what drives the run-and-gun fisherman. They feel a nagging need to be proactive, to be searching. They get bored. But successful fishing often requires you to fight that instinct. You have to have the confidence in your spot selection, your gear, and your technique to just wait. You have to understand that sometimes the most productive thing you can do is nothing. It's about shifting your mindset from frantic searching to confident ambushing. It's a mental game as much as it is a physical one. Learning to be comfortable with the quiet and the waiting is a skill in itself, and it's one that pays huge dividends. Think about the stories you hear from the old-timers. They talk about their spot. They don't talk about the 50 spots they checked that day. They often go to the same reliable location, set up their gear, and wait. They understood that fish have patterns and routes. They knew that if they waited on a specific underwater point, the perch or walleye would eventually pass by. Their success wasn't built on having the fastest auger or the fanciest sonar. It was built on a deep, almost intimate knowledge of the lake bottom and the habits of the fish. They trusted their spot. They leveraged decades of observation, and that observation taught them that patience, more often than not, is what fills the bucket. We can learn a lot by adopting a little bit of that old-school mentality. It's worth asking, are we too reliant on our gear? Has the marketing of bigger, faster, and more powerful tools created a problem that it also claims to solve? We buy a powerful electric auger that can drill a hole in 10 seconds, so we feel compelled to drill 50 holes. We buy a live scope sonar that can see 100 feet in every direction, so we feel compelled to constantly scan and search instead of fish. The gear is amazing, but it can push us toward a style of fishing that is fundamentally at odds with the cautious nature of our quarry. It encourages us to be loud, fast, and disruptive. Maybe the goal shouldn't be to use our technology to find fish faster, but to use it to better understand a single spot and fish it more effectively. The tech should be an aid to patience, not a replacement for it. So when you do set up, how can you be as quiet as possible? Well, let's call it the silent approach. First, when you arrive, don't drive your ATV or snowmobile right on top of where you plan to fish. Park it a good distance away. When you drill your holes, get it done as quickly and efficiently as possible, and then put the auger away. Don't leave it running. Avoid dropping things on the ice. Every scrape of a metal scoop or thud of a tackle box is amplified underwater. Walk lightly, be conscious of every sound you make. The goal is to drill your holes and then, effectively, disappear. You want the underwater world to forget you are even there. The more you can blend into the background, the more comfortable the fish will be, and the more likely they are to bite your lure. I want to end this section with a challenge, a controlled experiment. The next time you go ice fishing, I want you to try something different. Pick your single best spot based on a map or past experience. Go there, drill no more than 2 holes, and commit to fishing only those 2 holes for at least the first 3 hours of your trip. No moving, no more drilling. Bring a variety of lures, focus on your presentation, and be patient. Pay attention to the little signs. I can't guarantee you'll load the boat because that's fishing, but I am willing to bet that you will be surprised by what happens. You might experience a long period of nothing, followed by a sudden flurry of activity as fish move in. You will learn more about that one spot in 3 hours than you would learn about 10 spots by fishing them for 15 minutes each. Just try it once. So, let's bring it all together. Is constant drilling the biggest mistake in ice fishing? In many situations, the answer is a resounding yes. We've become so obsessed with the idea of actively finding fish that we've forgotten the damage we cause in the process. The noise, the vibration, the constant disruption, it puts fish on high alert and kills the bite before it ever starts. The real breakthrough, the What-eto Poverot moment, is this. The fish are often already there. They're just hunkered down, waiting for you, the noisy monster on the surface, to leave. The ultimate power move isn't drilling another hole, it's outlasting the fish's fear. It's about changing your role from a frantic hunter to a patient trapper. This one shift in perspective can fundamentally change your success on the ice. Thank you so much for watching. If this video made you rethink your strategy, do me a favor and hit that like button and subscribe for more content that goes against the grain. And now I want to hear from you. What's the longest you've ever waited patiently at a single hole before it finally paid off with a great fish? Share your stories in the comments below. I read every single one.